When we talk about design, no matter if it's UI UX design, graphic design, or even interior design, colors play a vital role in any of them. Undoubtedly, colors are one of the most important aspects of UI UX design. Without colors, it's almost impossible to give our design characters and feelings. No matter how good your composition is, if you don't use colors appropriately, I guarantee that your design won't stand out. When you design a project, whether it's a website or a mobile application, it's essential to convey the correct message and feelings to the end user by choosing proper colors. But why is color important in UI UX design? The short answer is visual first impression matters. Are you convinced? If not, let me elaborate more on that. When users launch a mobile application or a website, it takes them about 50 milliseconds to decide whether they want to stay in or not. Their decisions depend on different factors, and one of these factors is color usage. So can you see how important it is to use proper colors in your design? Choosing great colors looks complex at first glance, but trust me, when you learn the fundamentals of colors and the science behind that, I assure you that you can create amazing color schemes for your projects in no time. In the following videos, you will learn about the basics of colors for UI UX design. So see you then. When we want to use colors, there are different color modes that we can choose from, such as CMYK, RGB, grayscale, etc. But the most dominant ones are CMYK and RGB. Color modes can impact how images are presented to the users. Let me break them down for you. CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. It's most frequently used for color printing. RGB stands for red, green, and blue. It's best for digital work because these colors are the primary colors used in computer screens, mobile screens, etc. So if you are a graphic designer who wants to design artwork for print, you should use CMYK. And if you are a UI UX designer who wants to design for digital screens, you should use RGB. Let me quickly show you how RGB differs from CMYK. Take a look at this photo. The color mode of this image is RGB. But look what happens if I convert it to CMYK. Did you see that? What's the reason behind this difference? Here is the chromaticity diagram, and this is the range of colors that our eyes could process and recognize. This is the range of colors we can achieve in RGB mode, and this is the range of colors we can achieve in CMYK mode. As you can see, the RGB range or gamut is much larger than the CMYK range. That's why the RGB mode colors look more vibrant than the colors on the CMYK mode. I hope now you have a better understanding of different color modes. See you in the next video. We can break down every color into 3 core ingredients: hue, saturation, and value. Hue is basically the origin of the color we see, like red, blue, purple, or any other colors. The second property of a color is saturation, and it's the intensity of a hue. Take green for instance. Increase the saturation and the intensity increases. On the contrary, if we decrease that saturation, the intensity decreases. The last attribute of a color is value. It's basically the brightness of a color. Now we can break down the value into 2 different terms: tint and shade. A tint is a brighter version of a hue, and we can create one if we mix the hue with white. On the other hand, a shade is a darker version of a hue, and as you may guess, we can create one by adding black to our hue. We can also create a tone of our color by adding gray to it. In future videos, you will learn how to create different tints and shades of a color for your projects. Have you ever wondered how some UI designers create the perfect color palettes for their projects? They don't just use their artistic skills for this matter. They use science, and it's called color theory. To learn this science, you should understand what a color wheel is and how you can use it. This is a color wheel, and just like what you learned in school, it's made of primary, secondary, and tertiary colors. The primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. If we mix these colors together, they make the secondary colors, and they are green, orange, and purple. Finally, when we mix the secondary and primary colors, they make the tertiary colors: yellow-orange, red-orange, red-violet, blue-violet, blue-green, and yellow-green. These make up the color wheel invented by Sir Isaac Newton, and it simplifies how we can work with different colors. The color wheel can be divided into two main groups based on the color temperature: cool and warm colors. But how can we use the color wheel to come up with amazing color palettes for our projects? Well, we can use some basic formulas known as color harmonies to pick different colors from the color wheel harmoniously. We will talk about color harmonies in future videos. As I mentioned in the previous video, we have two groups of colors: cool and warm colors. But how should we know which group is more suitable for our UI design project? Each group of colors has some characteristics that help us decide whether it's a good choice or not. For example, cool colors represent water, snow, sky, and they are calm, soothing, and refreshed. On the other hand, warm colors represent heat, sunlight, and friendliness. They are energetic, exciting, and cozy in general. Depending on the brand characteristics, we can decide which color group is suitable for our project. For instance, if the brand offers exciting and fun activities, you can go with the warm colors. Conversely, you can use cool colors if the brand is all about trust, safeness, professionalism, etc. So the colors we use should reflect the brand's personality. In addition to these two groups, we have another group of colors called neutral colors: white, black, brown, and gray. Neutral colors don't appear in the color wheel. We usually use them for backgrounds because they complement and highlight other colors pretty well in our design. But using a gray or white color as a background doesn't always look interesting and aesthetic to the user's eyes. Then what can we do? To make our design look even better, we can add a hue and a little saturation to the neutral colors. Thanks to this technique, the neutral colors look more interesting to the user's eyes. Now that you learned about the color wheel and color in general, it's time to learn how to use the color wheel to create professional looking color schemes. There are some basic formulas based on color harmony that can help us choose harmonious colors easily. Let's start with the easiest formula, which is called monochromatic. It uses only one color or hue. Just choose a color on the color wheel and create variations using the saturation and value. What I like about monochromatic color schemes is the fact that they are guaranteed to work well together. The next color formula is complementary. It takes two colors from opposite sides of the color wheel, such as blue and orange, or yellow and purple. It's a great color scheme when you want to use high contrasting colors in your design. A split complementary color scheme takes the colors on either side of the complement. It gives you different colors to work with while keeping the same level of contrast. An analogous color scheme takes colors that are next to each other on the color wheel, like yellows and greens or blues and purples. A triadic color scheme uses three colors that are evenly spaced, and they form a triangle on the color wheel. These color combinations are usually vibrant, so make sure to use them wisely in your projects. The tetradic color scheme takes two sets of complementary colors and forms a rectangle on the color wheel. These colors work great when you let one color act as the main color and the others as an accent. You can create various tints, shades, and tones within each color palette. If you are a little bit overwhelmed, don't worry. When you start applying these methods, you will gain confidence and you can easily recognize whether some colors work together or not. Color contrast is the difference in light between the foreground and background. Does it sound weird? Let me show you an example. Here is a sharp background, and if we add an element with a saturated color on top of it, we will get this terrible piece of art. And I wish I could pretend that I have never seen such an awful design. Fortunately, we could fix that. You could often get a better contrast ratio just by modifying the tones, tints, or saturation of your colors. A contrast ratio is just a value assigned to the difference in light between foreground and background. The higher the ratio, the easier it gets to read the content on the screen. Here are a few tips that could take your design quality from good to great. Tip number 1. Never use pure black on pure white and vice versa. It causes digital eye strain and hurts users' eyes. Instead, you can use a very dark gray on a very light gray and vice versa. Tip number 2. Don't use a bright color on a bright color. It doesn't let your elements stand out. Instead, you can use a bright color on a dark shade. Tip number 3. Always check your colors on both light and dark backgrounds. Sometimes you may need to adjust them to get a good contrast ratio on dark backgrounds. And last but not least, tip number 4. Always validate your colors by checking the contrast ratio. Believe me, there are beautiful looking user interface designs on Dribbble and Behance that fail the contrast ratio test. You will learn how to check the contrast ratio later in this course. Now that you've learned how the color combinations work, let's see some examples of each color harmony to see how you can apply them to your design. Monochromatic color scheme. As you can see, this website uses a monochromatic color scheme. Why? Because it only uses one single color here. But Arash, we have many colors here. Why are you saying that it uses only one single color? At first glance, it may seem that there are many colors here. However, we have one single color and different shades, tones, and tints of that color. So the primary color is this blue, and they used a dark shade of that color for this large title and also the links at the top. And for the sign up button, as you can see, they used the primary color and a light tint of that color, okay? So basically the hue is the same, but the value and saturation are different. All right, let's take a look at another example. This website called Orbit also uses a monochromatic color scheme. And here they also use only one color, and they perfectly apply these colors to their design to create a great visual hierarchy. Complementary color scheme. Alright, here is a popular website, Booking. And as you can see, it uses a complementary color scheme. Why? Because here we have blue and orange. These two colors are placed on the opposite sides of the color wheel. They also used a neutral color for their background. And this is the reason that the orange and the blue colors stand out here. So it's very important to choose your background color wisely. There are some other colors such as green or red here, but these are semantic colors and we will talk about them later. Let's take a look at this mobile application. It's also a very popular company, and as you can see, it uses the same combination here, blue and orange. It's a very popular color combination that you can see in interior design, in graphic design, and in UI UX design. Split complementary color scheme. This website uses a split complementary color scheme, and as you can see, it's energetic and fun. And the reason is, these are high contrasting colors. Usually we use them in illustrations. Now let's take a look at this website. Here I also used a split complementary color scheme. And as you can see, I used it for the patterns on the right side, not for the rest of elements on the left side. So it's very important to know which colors are suitable for which content. Analogous color scheme. This website uses an analogous color scheme, and as you can see, the designer perfectly applied these colors to the illustration and just used a white color for the foreground content. Therefore, we have a very high contrast ratio here. This website also uses an analogous color scheme. As you can see, they use the main color as the background, and they use two other colors that are placed on the right and left sides of the color on the color wheel. And they use them for the CTA or call to action, as you can see, and also for the title. These are the accent colors and they should get the most attention. Triadic color scheme. This website uses a triadic color scheme, and as you noticed, these colors are exciting and fun. This is also another example of triadic color scheme. As you can see here, the designer used some desaturated colors to let the contents and information like these text and these images pop on those backgrounds, and the result is great. Tetradic color scheme. Here is an example of tetradic color scheme used in user interface design. As you can see here, most of colors are used for the illustration. The illustration here has many colors like green, orange, red, pink, dark purple, etc. So it's not actually a good idea to use this color scheme for the main elements of your project like text, buttons, etc. So unless you are an experienced designer and know what you're doing, I wouldn't suggest using this color scheme in UI UX design. This website is another example of a tetradic color scheme. Here again, we have an illustration, and it's obvious that the designer didn't use the whole color palette for the content. Knowing how to pair colors is crucial for any designer. However, it's not enough for creating a meaningful design. Let's look into the meaning of individual colors. Nevertheless, any color can convey a positive or negative feeling to the users. So you want to make sure you use the right colors to communicate with users properly. Each color can have positive and negative feelings, so it's important to use them in the right place to avoid any misunderstanding. Red. Red implicates excitement, love, power, and energy. It also could convey danger, error, and aggression. So ensure to clarify the intent with a short description alongside the color. Yellow. Yellow represents creativity, happiness, optimism, and friendliness. That's why McDonald's uses it as its brand color. Orange. Orange could provide the users with a sense of warmth. It's inviting and shows success and confidence. Green. Green is a dominant color in nature that can evoke powerful emotions. It represents health, freshness, and growth. If you want to design a project for an eco-friendly product, that's probably the best color you could use. Blue. Blue signifies trust, calmness, and peace. For some people, it's a sign of sadness and depression. You may have recognized that most technology and corporate websites use blue to deliver a sense of trust, calm, and respect. Some hospitals also use blue on their website. By far, blue is the most preferred color by all users. This is why you see many mobile applications and websites out there using blue as their dominant color. Violet. Violet is a color that symbolizes royalty and wealth. Since the violet dye was scarce in the past, it was reserved for royalty. It's also the favorite color of many female users, and it provides a sense of creativity. Pink. Pink is a color of compassion and positivity. While pink has been used for feminine products for years, it can be gender neutral as well. But make sure to think twice when you want to use pink for a woodworking shop website. Brown. Just like green, brown is associated with nature. Even though it can provide a sense of coziness, it can also be dull and dirty. Make sure to check different brown shades before applying them to your design, because a light brown can look clean and a dark one can look dirty. Black. Black implies elegance, luxury, and sophistication. Make sure to use it properly, as it might provide a sense of sorrow and sadness as well. Although it's commonly used for text, you could use it for the background as long as you put vibrant colors in the foreground. White. We see white in almost any design, and that's because it symbolizes cleanliness and simplicity. If you want to design a minimalistic web page or a mobile application, make sure to use white a lot. You may be familiar with the term white space, and it means leaving some space empty that the user doesn't feel overwhelmed. Not to mention it lets other colors pop in your design as well. From now on, I want you to think about the meaning of colors you use in your projects that you could upgrade your design from good to awesome. When designing an app or a website, it's essential to know who your target audience is. Why? Because based on the user's demographics, you can decide which colors work best for the project and potentially increase the conversion rate. Over the past years, different research projects have shown that men and women prefer different colors. Just because we know the color's meaning, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should use them all. Let's compare the most preferred colors by men and women side by side. As you can see, blue is the most popular color for both men and women. Now you understand why so many websites and applications use blue as their dominant color. Purple is mostly liked by women, while both men and women like red and green. Now let's compare the most disliked colors by men and women. As you can see, brown and orange are the least favorite colors for both men and women. So next time you want to create a color palette, you could first do a little bit of research to find out who your target audience really is, and based on what you found, you could pick your colors easily. No matter what kind of UI design project you work on, you will need the following colors to work with. 1. Primary and secondary colors. Primary color is a dominant color that's used most frequently in your UI. Usually, you should use the brand's color as the primary color. Consider this image as an example. Qatar Airways uses its purplish brand color as their primary color. Optionally, you can create a set of secondary colors to make your design more interesting. Keep in mind that you should use secondary colors if and only if they are required for your design to pop. Suppose you want to design a menu with different options. In order to distinguish between the selected option and unselected options, you can use a secondary color. 2. Accent colors. Accent color is used to emphasize actions and highlight information such as text, buttons or call to action, slider, links, progress bar, etc. Once you picked your primary color, you can use the color harmonies we talked about to create the accent color. I'll show you how to create a color palette step by step in the next video. Consider the Lyft landing page. It uses purple as the accent color, and as you can see, it has been used for the call to action and links. 3. Semantic colors. They are used for warning, error, success, and information. Use yellow for warning, red for error, green for success, and blue for information. These colors are suggested based on the color psychology. You are free to use different shades, tones, and tints of these colors. Make sure not to use these semantic colors interchangeably because they may convey the wrong message to the user. Neutral colors. White, black, or gray schemes. These colors are mostly used for text and background. They let all other colors pop in your design. Almost all color palettes require neutral colors to create a high color contrast ratio between the background and foreground. As you can see, this website uses a light neutral color for the background. And last but not least, number 5, chart and data visualization colors. Just like secondary colors, having these colors are also optional depending on the type of your project. If you need to have charts, heat maps, or tree map in your UI, consider creating a set of 10 to 20 colors in a particular order. You could create such colors using the following guidelines. You can create a categorical color scheme made of multiple colors that contrast to each other in a certain order. It's good for line charts, bar charts, etc. Since these are contrasting colors, use this color scheme when you need to present data distinctively. The other type of color scheme you can create is sequential. It's a gradual transition of colors from light to dark and vice versa. It's suitable for tree map and heat map. The last type of color scheme you can create is diverging. Diverging colors are useful when you have negative and positive values to present. Don't use these colors for categorical scales. Now that you have gained all the required knowledge about color, let's put them into practice and create a color palette step by step. Are you ready? Let's get started. No matter what software you're using, change the color model to HSP. I use Figma, so let me show you how it works. First, I head over to the Fill section, and from this drop menu, I choose HSP. As you can see, we have 3 different values here. H for hue, S for saturation, and B for brightness. So when we want to increase the intensity of our color, we should increase the saturation here. If we want to create a shade, we should decrease the brightness to add black to our base color. Step 1. Choose your base color. It's the primary color of your UI. You can pick the brand's color for it if there is any. Step 2. Apply the color to a shape on your canvas. It could be a circle or a rectangle. Step 3. Duplicate the shape 5 times to get 6 identical shapes. These are your swatches. Step 4. Choose the swatches near the base color and modify only the saturation or brightness to get 2 supportive dark shades of your color. Don't change the hue. These colors are used for different states of actionable elements like buttons or links. For example, when we design a button, we want to create all the states of the button like default, active, inactive, etc. Step 5. Now choose 2 neutral colors by adding gray and white to your color. Step 6. Finally, create a dark tone of your color by adding more gray to your color. We are done. As you can see, just by using one single base color, you can design a complete interface. I have a question for you. What kind of color harmony did we use to create this beautiful palette? If your answer is monochromatic, you are absolutely right. We used one color and created variations by adding tints, shades, and tones to our color palette. Now let's create an analogous color scheme. I'm gonna use the color wheel as my reference. Let's pick purple as our base color. Now I'm gonna move the hue slider to the left and right slightly to choose 3 more colors. Keep in mind that in order to create variations for your color scheme, you don't need major hue changes. You just need to slightly modify the hue and create variations by adjusting saturation and brightness. In this case, I'm gonna choose a tint of this pink color as my accent color. Now that our primary and accent colors are ready, it's time to add 2 neutral colors by adding gray to our main color. Now let's see how this palette looks in an interface. It looks amazing, doesn't it? Depending on the type of project, you can add semantic colors to your color palette. Semantic colors are used for warning, error, success, and information. As I mentioned in the previous video, you should use yellow for warning, red for error, green for success, and blue for showing information. A quick note here, having these colors is a must if you want to design a dashboard, because on dashboards, we usually present important data, and it's essential to use semantic colors to convey the purpose and meaning of all data to the users clearly. In this video, we're going to talk about the process of picking a base color for your color palettes. The base color is the dominant color in your project. To choose the base color, check the brand colors first. If you want to design a website or a mobile application for KFC, what would be the best base color for your color palette? Yes, you're right, red. Why? Because the brand's customers are familiar with the brand's color and can connect with your design instantly. If you need to choose the brand's primary color, first, list the characteristics of the brand and think about what color connects to the idea behind the brand in accordance with the color psychology. It's essential to use colors that communicate with users. Let's suppose you want to choose a primary color for a company that offers organic products. In that case, Green could be a good option because it feels natural and fresh. When you decide which color is suitable for the brand, you can play with that color's attributes such as saturation, brightness, and value. Most of the time, you choose a color and you say that it looks cool. However, when you try to combine that color with other colors, it may not look as good as you expected. So make sure to check your primary color against other colors to see if that's the right choice for your project. We will talk about the accessibility of colors later in this course. Accent colors are used for links, call to actions, progress bar, etc. They are usually bright and saturated. You can create an accent color by choosing the base or primary color and using different color harmonies like monochromatic, analogous, or complementary. If you're still unsure how to choose a great accent color, let me show you my process. Choose your primary color and increase or decrease the hue by 30 to 40 points. Now increase the brightness by 5 to 10 points. Voila! Your accent color is ready. This formula works with any color. Can you see how easy it is to create an accent color now? No matter how beautiful and vibrant your accent colors are, if you don't have a good background color, they don't get enough attention. So it's crucial to choose your background color wisely. When it comes to background, you are not limited to use just light colors. Sometimes you can use the primary color for the background as long as it's not too vibrant to make the users leave your website or app. You can also select your primary color and create a very light tint by decreasing the saturation and increasing the brightness. As you can see, I used this technique for this interface. For instance, you can set the saturation value between 2 to 8 points and set the brightness value between 95 to 100 points. Neutral colors are guaranteed to work best for backgrounds. As I mentioned before, semantic colors are used for status and feedback like warning, error, success, and information. Although you should use yellow, red, green, and blue as your semantic colors, you are not limited to just one color. The best practice is that you create different shades and tints of these colors to be able to apply them flexibly. Once your 4 colors are ready, you can use monochromatic color harmony to create variants. That gives you enough flexibility for applying these colors to your design. Let's suppose you want to design a warning. If you used only one color, it would look like this. Now let's take a step further and add a shade of yellow to our semantic colors. Now the result looks much better. The same technique could be applied to all other semantic colors. What's a color scale? Do you remember the 3 attributes of color? Yes, I'm talking about hue, saturation, and value. A color scale is a gradual transition of a particular color from light to dark or vice versa. So, what attribute of color is changing in a color scale? You're right, value. Many artists and designers believe that value is the most important attribute of color. But why? Because you don't need color to design a beautiful and accessible project. All you need is a grayscale that you could use to create a great visual hierarchy using contrasting colors. As a designer, you should understand that if you don't get the values right, the rest of your colors won't look right. When it comes to color accessibility, values play an important role. Let's take a look at the material design color palettes. In case you don't know, material design is a design language developed by Google, and it gives you a set of guidelines to enhance your design process. Here are a few color scales created by material design. These colors are chosen to work together harmoniously. As you can see, each color corresponds with a number between 50 to 900. Higher values represent darker colors, and lower values represent lighter ones. Having different values of a color helps us meet the accessibility standards. What do I mean by accessibility? Let's take this purple for instance. As you can see, the text color used on some variants is white and on others is black. It means that you should use a light text color on some colors and on others you should use a dark text color in order for the text to be legible. We will explore color accessibility later in this course. What's grayscale? Grayscale is simply made of different shades of gray. Many artists and designers start their design using a grayscale. But why? The reason is, when you work with just different shades of gray, you can focus on other important things like spacing, sizes, visual hierarchy, the weight of your elements, and more. You can just concentrate on how your elements like buttons, text, sliders, or cards should be laid out. When you use the grayscale color mode, you can easily notice whether you have enough contrast between your elements or not. For example, this interface has a great visual hierarchy. As you can see, the most important information is darker than the least important information. Now I want you to focus on the priority column. Can you see that the higher the priority level is, the darker the color gets? Let's analyze it further. Here we have 3 priority levels: high, medium, and low. Now let's switch to the grayscale mode. As you can see, the highest priority has the darkest shade here, and this is why we don't usually use yellow for the delete button in an interface. Now take a look at this card. The colors are harmonious, and you're ready to add the card to your design. Except you aren't. Let's switch to the grayscale color mode for a second. Can you see the problem? As you can see, we don't have a good visual hierarchy here, making our design less accessible. How can we fix that? Well, I would use a lighter color for the description and the cancel button. But why? Because of the importance of visual hierarchy. Our most important elements, which are the title and the confirm button, should get the most attention. Therefore, the cancel button and the description should have a lighter tint of our colors. Now let's compare it with the grayscale mode. Obviously, it looks much better now in terms of both accessibility and visual hierarchy. So if you want to have an efficient design process, make sure to start with grayscale and then apply colors to your design. Now that you've learned how to choose your colors based on color harmonies and color psychology, it's actually time to apply them to your design. But wait, can't you apply colors to your elements randomly? Of course you can't, unless you want your design to look like this. It's hurtful, isn't it? Imagine you're cooking a portion of delicious and beautiful food for lunch. You have all the ingredients ready at your disposal and you just need to know how much of each ingredient should be added to your pan. If you use the ingredients disproportionately, you may end up with a salty meal or a tasteless meal. If that's not your intent, you need to have a recipe. But do we have a recipe for applying colors as well? Fortunately, yes we do. There is a well-known rule called 60-30-10 that's taken from interior design. Let's see how it works. Based on this rule, you need to use 60% of your dominant or primary color, 30% of your secondary color, and 10% of your accent color. First, let's check this interior design. As you can see, the primary color is used for 60% of the environment. The secondary color is used for 30% of the environment, and the accent color is used for 10% of the environment. Now it's time to give it a try. This is an interface designed in grayscale mode. Let's start using only 3 colors first: a primary, a secondary, and an accent color. I'm going to use the primary color for our background, the secondary color for the text and these cards, and the accent color for the CTA, which are these buttons, and also for these bars in the bar chart. Can you see how balanced this design is? Now we could even rearrange our color proportions. Let's replace the primary color with our secondary color and see how it turns out. It still looks good, doesn't it? But don't we normally have more colors in our color palette? Yes, we do. We can still apply this rule even if we have different shades of our primary color or more secondary and accent colors. We just need to keep them in the same ratio. Let's consider this color palette. We might want to use this light neutral color and this blue primary color mostly in our design. Then both of them should take 60% of our ratio. These two colors are now going to be our secondary colors, so they take 30% of our ratio. And last but not least, these two accent colors should take 10% of our ratio. Now let's see how we could apply them to our interface. We could start with our hero section. We pick one of the colors from our primary ratio, which takes 60% of our design in total, and we use it as the hero section's background. The other primary color is also used as the other part of our background. Now for the content, we could use our secondary colors. For the CTA buttons, we need to use a color that draws the user's attention. So we should use our accent colors for this purpose. So I'm gonna use yellow for the CTA buttons and orange for the slider button and indicator. Remember that you should always check your colors against each other to see whether there is a good contrast ratio between them or not. One accent color may look amazing on dark backgrounds while the other could be only legible on light backgrounds. This is basically how you can allocate different colors to different elements of your design. One of the things you can do to make sure that your color ratio works well is to create variants for different parts of your design and compare them with each other in terms of content legibility and accessibility. Now that you know how to create a great color palette for your projects, it's time to talk about gradients. What's a gradient? A gradient is a gradual transition from one color to another color. Although using gradients in your design is optional, it adds character and personality to your design. That's why most designers nowadays use gradients in their design. We have basically 4 different types of gradients: linear, radial, angular, and diamond. But the most popular one is the linear gradient. Now let me show you how you can create great gradients for your projects. First, open up coolers.co. Now click on the More menu at the top and click on the Create a Gradient button. Here we could create our gradient. As you can see, we have different colors here. If I hover my mouse on top of this slider and click somewhere, I can add a new color to this slider. And if I want to remove a color, I can click on this Remove button, just like that. Now that we have 2 different colors, let me tell you how you can come up with great gradients. Because obviously not all colors look great when we blend them together. Let me select my first color and I'm gonna change it to blue, okay? For example, this blue. Now I'm gonna show you a bad example. Let me select the second color and change it to, for example, orange, just like that. As you can see, this gradient doesn't look very good because we don't have a smooth transition here. Although we are using a color harmony, the result is not good. Remember, some color harmonies are only good for solid colors, not gradients. But how can we make it better? Here is my technique, and I recommend that you should use that too because it's so simple and it's gonna make your life much easier. First, select your first color, copy the hex color code, and paste it for the second color, okay? So here we have 2 identical colors. Now, using the color picker, I'm gonna move the slider to the right and to the left in order to pick analogous colors, just like that. Now can you see how amazing and smooth this color transition is? Now let's try another example. I'm gonna move the hue slider to the left side a little bit. Can you see how beautiful it is? You can also modify the brightness of your colors if you wish. It's totally up to you. This technique always works. So in order to create great gradients, you need to remember only one rule, and that's using the analogous color harmony. If you want to come up with random gradients, you can easily click on this random button and Colors creates random gradients for you, just like that. The other thing you can do is use monochromatic color harmony, okay? So just by using one color and different shades and tints of that color, you can come up with great gradients, just like that. When it comes to UI UX design, accessibility matters a lot. After all, designers are there to solve problems, not to make them. So it's important to design in a way that everyone, regardless of their physical, auditory, or visual disabilities, could be able to use the product. Color accessibility lets people with vision impairment use the product we design just like everyone else. Do you remember the example about semantic colors? This is all about color accessibility. Here we have 3 profile images with a status indicator at the top right corner. Green means the user is online, blue indicates that the user is offline, and purple means that the user is busy. But let's see how people with monochromatic vision see this design. As you can see, the colors are difficult to distinguish from one another. That's why choosing the right value for each color matters a lot. Now let's modify these colors to make this design more accessible. Let's use semantic colors for these indicators. Now it's so much better. Can you see why accessibility is important now? People suffering from monochromatic vision cannot distinguish hues, so they can only see different shades of gray. This is why I already mentioned that the value of colors is more important than other attributes of color. We can create a good contrast between our shades by just changing the value of a color that even people with monochromatic vision could recognize our elements hierarchy. Of course, there are many color vision deficiencies, but the point I'm trying to make is that not everyone perceives the colors the way we do. Let's consider this design and see how different people with color vision deficiencies can process these colors. Monochromatic vision or complete color blindness. As I mentioned before, people with monochromatic vision can only see different gray shades. Protanopia color blindness. People with this color vision deficiency perceive red colors as darker colors than normal, and usually red becomes a dark green. So if you choose red as your foreground color and black as your background color, it would be too dark for them to read the text. Blue cone monochromacy, or BCM for short. People with BCM can't see the red and green colors properly, while they can perceive blue. There are other color vision deficiencies as well, but the important thing is that we as designers should make sure to choose our colors in a way that improves the functionality of the products we design. So always put the user in the center of your design. One of the factors that we should always check regarding color accessibility is the contrast ratio. According to Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG for short, there are 2 different levels of contrast ratio. AA for minimum contrast or AAA for enhanced contrast. The AA level requires a minimum contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1 for normal text and 3 to 1 for large or bold text. On the other hand, the AAA level requires a minimum contrast ratio of 7 to 1 for normal text and 4.5 to 1 for large or bold text. But wait, how can we actually measure the contrast ratio of our colors? Well, we can use online contrast checkers for this matter. There is a website called Colors for both creating color palettes and checking the contrast ratio. Let's give it a try and see how it works. Go to colors.co/contrast checker. Here we should specify a background color, and here we should specify the text color we are going to use on our background. As you can see, I've got a pretty high number, and it's fantastic. It also indicates that this color combination works well for both small and large text. Now let's check another pair of colors. Can you see that? It's still readable, but it works only for large text. So always check the contrast ratio of your colors to see how accessible they are. In this video, I'm gonna introduce some useful tools to you for accessibility. Are you ready? Let's get started. Number 1. Stark. It's a Figma, Sketch, and Adobe XD plugin. It lets you check your color contrast ratio and simulate different color vision deficiencies. You just need to select an artboard and run the plugin, and Stark handles the rest. Number 2. Contrast. It's a Figma plugin that lets you check the contrast ratio of your colors. Unlike Stark, which lets you check the contrast ratio only 3 times with the free plan, Contrast has no limit in this regard, and it also has a cool feature that scans your entire design to find text contrast issues. Number 3. WhoCanUse.com. It's an amazing website that not only checks the color contrast ratio but also shows how color combinations can affect different people with visual impairments. Let's give it a try. First, we specify our background's color. Then we set our text color and specify the font size and weight. Here we can see the contrast ratio, which is quite high, and the grading, which is AAA. Additionally, we can see how different people can process this color combination. So we have the regular vision, the most popular color blindness deficiencies, and some other vision problems. We also have the situational vision events, which is quite interesting because we can see how accessible our color combination is by simulating the effect of direct sunlight and night mode on a phone or screen.